At number 6 in last place is The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey. It's kind of disappointing that they decided to make The Hobbit an entire trilogy because it leaves this movie full of filler. The beginning of this movie is extremely boring because it's just a bunch of dwarves singing in Bilbo's house. Some of the adventure was kind of interesting, but overall, the movie is not good. My first reaction to this film was that there's just too much of everything, and I still hold that opinion. Whenever there was action, I got bored because we already had enough of that. And whenever there was plot and discussion, I got bored because we already had enough of that. So that's why the first Hobbit is last place. At number 5 is The Hobbit: The Battle of the Five Armies. A lot of people have this one in last place, but I do think it's better than An Unexpected Journey. This film still has too many plot lines and too much action, but it is more focused than the first Hobbit movie in my opinion. I still don't care for this film much because even the action gets boring sometimes. The action is good, but there's just so much of it that you start to get tired of it. Overall, the Hobbit movies seem to care more about the action rather than the story, so I don't like the Hobbit movies as much. Also, this movie seems to assume that we care about Thorin, when I really didn't. With all that said, this movie held my attention better than the first Hobbit film, at least. In fourth place is The Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers. For whatever reason, the night when I watched this film, it did not work for me. It's easily the worst in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and because I watched the extended cut of this film, it just felt way too long. One problem I had with The Two Towers was the comedy. I just didn't think the comedy was timed quite right. I also felt like there were too many different plotlines going on, so even though I watched the extended cut, none of the plotlines felt fully developed, and whenever it cut to Merry and Pippin with the Ents, the movie slows down significantly. But I have to admit, the Battle of Helm's Deep was pretty amazing. In third place is The Hobbit: The Desolation of Smaug. That's right, I think one of the Hobbit films is better than one of the Lord of the Rings movies. The Desolation of Smaug did a lot of things really well. First off, I think this movie nailed the action. The barrel riding sequence was phenomenal especially. I also really loved what they did with Smaug. I was kind of surprised that I liked this one more than The Two Towers, but that's just my opinion. I still think there are a couple too many plot lines because there are some parts to this film that I really do not like. Every time they went back to Keeley, I wanted to fast forward past it. But in the end, this film did hold my attention better than a bunch of others. My runner-up is The Lord of the Rings: The Fellowship of the Ring. The film that kicked off the entire Middle-earth franchise is still one of the best. What it does so well is it introduces us to so many great characters. This is the movie where we actually get to see the group together the most. And because all the characters are together, it feels like a more focused story. And it does all this without making it boring. The adventure is all very entertaining, but it also has a great story to tell. Overall, this is the Lord of the Rings film where characters are at their best, because you have Gandalf with his "you shall not pass" moment, and you also have Boromir with his sacrifice at the end. Fellowship made you love these characters so that you can appreciate the later movies even more. But easily number 1 is The Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King. This is easily my favorite film in the franchise. In fact, it's my second favorite film of all time. This movie just captures the struggle of this journey so incredibly well. There are so many times that Frodo and Sam could have given up, but they don't, and it is very emotional. Even if they think they'll never get back to the Shire, they keep going. That's why I love this movie so much. But other than that, I think the battles are even better than they were in The Two Towers, and I just love seeing all these characters' arcs come to a close. The entire ending is perfect as well. When the ring finally falls into the pit, it is phenomenal. But this film also shows us what happens when they all get back home, and that's an important thing that many stories skip around. Return of the King is just the best Middle-earth movie, and it always will be.